Hello guys and welcome back to a new episode of Italian Politician of the Week. I am Ipernick, the great is silent, and today we are talking about Roberto Cingolani, Italian physicist and Minister of Ecological Transition. Cingolani is by far one of the more important ministers in the Draghi government, since his mission of gradually changing the energy sources from the old fossil fuels to something more eco-friendly is far from an easy one. However, Cingolani stands out from the crowd for his positive opinions on nuclear energy, something quite unique that has reignited an atomic debate in Italy which has been dormant since 2011. Cingolani is also playing an important role in Di Maio's search for alternatives to Russia's gas in the last few weeks. Probably at around the time this video will be out, Cingolani and our foreign minister will be flying to Angola and the Congo to strengthen relations and buy more gas from them. Draghi was supposed to join them, but he caught COVID, so I've said enough for now. Let's roll the intro. Cingolani was born in 1961 in Milan, but he spent his childhood in Bari in the south. He graduated in physics at the Bari University in 1985 and later got a PhD in Pisa. From 1988 to 1991, Cingolani was a staff member of the Max Planck Institute in Stuttgart, Germany, under the direction of Nobel laureate Klaus von Klitzing. Then he became a professor of physics at the University of Lecce, another city in Apulia, where he remained until 2005. From 2005 to 2019, Cingolani was the scientific director of the Italian Institute of Technology in Genoa, and he did such a great job over there that he won a Rome Science Prize in 2015, specifically on something about artificial intelligence. Before becoming minister in 2021, he had worked at the weapons company Leonardo for about 2 years and was appointed as a non-executive director for Ferrari. Very cool. Now, the way Cingolani went from researcher to minister is kind of funny. The people who wanted him the most were the Five-Star Movement, everyone's favorite populists. The reason for this was simple. One of Conte's conditions for entering Draghi's coalition was the implementation of a Ministry of Ecological Transition, which would also include the roles of the Ministry of the Environment. Cingolani, in his few public appearances, always appeared like a somewhat level-headed, modest guy, or at least he was for someone who worked in such big company like Leonardo, and Draghi agreed to let him join the team due to his very rich curriculum. It won't be long after his appointment, though, into office that the left started regretting their choice, because in his first few weeks, Cingolani said that nuclear energy was going to be part of his plans for energy conversion. Nuclear plants have a terrible reputation because of atomic bombs, but also because of disasters such as Chernobyl and others which were narrowly avoided, like the one in the Japanese earthquake in 2011. Furthermore, while it is true that out of all means of energy production, nuclear energy produces the most when compared to the waste and environmental impact, the waste itself is highly dangerous and takes centuries to neutralize. Italy does not have nuclear reactors of any kind. That's because in 2011 a referendum was made to ask people if we should allow the construction of such facilities, and the answer was an overwhelming no. Italy is rich of areas that are often subject to earthquakes, and Italians do not trust institutions too much. So understandably, many thought that building these things was not worth the risk, fearing environmental damage and other accidents which could affect their health negatively. Cingolani, however, says that in a decade or so, the research and effort put in the development of Generation 4 reactors will address all our concerns on safety, while also helping us transition from fossils to green fuels. This line of thought was supported by the European Union, which included the atom and gas among the relatively clean group of energy sources. However, Italy is still very unsure on the matter. Misinformation may have played a role, although the concerns that many Italians raise are far from stupid. Cingolani seems to think otherwise, however, and so far he hasn't refrained himself from calling the people who disagree with him a bunch of hippies or radical chic. While it is true that most of the green political circles here in Italy seem to be stuck in the 90s, they are right when in response to Cingolani's insults, they point out that the technology the minister is talking about doesn't exist yet, and that therefore advocating for it is useless and pointless. The Greens, while they are technically part of this debate, don't really have a big voice in the public sphere, mostly because instead of doing things for the environment, they focused more on demonizing conglomerates, and that's not very efficient when you try to get elected into parliament. But that's another story for another day. Despite what you might think, Cingolani seems to have the environmental cause at heart. He was often guest at many conferences about green energy and even met Greta Thunberg once. Really, the only thing stopping him from planting solar panels and fans all over the country is pragmatism and the acknowledgement of the fact that a bunch of windmills just won't do to fuel the economy of a country as Italy. The question of nuclear energy, though, was put on hold recently due to the current war in Ukraine and the sudden rise in prices of gas and oil, a price increase that Cingolani himself called a scam, because aside of the sanctions imposed by the European Union and the conflict itself, part of what is making petrol cost so much more in the past few months is also the price set by the companies who extract and refine the product. In order to find a way to compensate on the gap that cutting on Russian gas will inevitably cause, Draghi and the foreign minister Di Maio have been cultivating better relations with a few third world nations who sell fossil fuels to whichever country requires it. The first country our prime minister visited was Algeria, and Cingolani was most certainly present on the trip. On the 11th of April, they closed the deal with President Abdelmajid Tebboune, who will provide an additional 9 billion cubic meters of natural gas to Italy. Algeria and Italy have a long history which dates back to its war for independence. The company Eni and its founder Enrico Mattei are without a doubt the main characters in such conflict for the support he provided to the resistance. Mattei will appear in the next poll for the Italian Politician of the Week for the 13th of May, so if you want to know more about him and his legacy, be sure to like the video. Eni is an Italian oil company which is part of the Seven Sisters, and it has business in many countries in Africa, such as Nigeria, Egypt, Angola, and the Republic of the Congo, all of which are part of Draghi's and Cingolani's plan for oil and gas. Things seem to be going smoothly and everyone is optimistic for the future, although this substitution will take years to come to fruition. It is also important to mention how 3 of the countries I've mentioned did not openly condemn Russia in the conflict, and the relation between Italy and Egypt is already pretty rocky due to the several diplomatic incidents, like when Italian student Giulio Regeni was killed by Egyptian authorities thinking that he was a spy, or when Egyptian student Patrick Zaki, who was studying gender studies in Bologna, was arrested on his way back home for the holidays and kept in prison for 2 years with no trials over a bunch of Facebook posts, of course in Egypt. I can't help but to wonder if dealing with these low-tier authoritarian regimes will eventually bite us in the ass in a few decades. I mean, Angola has more landmines than cigarette butts underground, so they don't worry me that much, but Egypt, a bit, I'm not going to lie. Again, I kind of lost track of Cingolani in this second part, just like in Giorgetti's videos last week, but I feel like I've said enough about him and the energy issue Italy is currently facing. What do you guys think about Cingolani? What's your take on nuclear energy? What about the gas and oil stuff? Do you think it's good that Italy is looking for fuel in these countries in particular? Let me know in the comments below. I will see you next week.